The battlefield stretched for miles, a wasteland of smoldering craters and shattered steel. The sky, once a serene shade of violet, now churned with thick acrid smoke. Scattered across the scorched earth lay the remains of countless warriors, both human and alien. Overhead, Dominion warships hovered like silent sentinels, their massive hulls casting elongated shadows over the charred ground below. Captain Adrian Wolfe stepped onto the battlefield, his boots sinking slightly into the loose debris. The weight of the war pressed down on him, yet his posture remained upright, composed. Unlike the armored Dominion forces, clad in plates of reinforced alloy and energy shields, Adrian wore nothing more than a standard-issue combat vest over his fatigues. No armor. No shielding. Just him and the rifle strapped across his back. To the Dominion soldiers assembled across the battlefield, the sight was absurd. A lone human, unprotected, walking without fear through an arena of death. One such soldier, a Karvok infantry officer, hissed in amusement, his mandibles clicking together. Does the human seek death? The Dominion warriors standing beside him, a mix of reptilian Torkins and exoskeletal Ivari, rumbled in agreement. To them, humans were primitive, flesh and bone, fragile against the advanced weaponry of the Galactic Dominion. Commander Zelvar observed the human from a distance, his four golden eyes narrowing. He had studied humans before, examined their tactics, their desperation, their so-called resilience. But this Adrian Wolfe moved differently. There was no hesitation in his stride, no tension in his frame. He was either fearless or completely insane. The Dominion had already claimed this battlefield. The human forces had been pushed back, their armored units overwhelmed by superior firepower. All that remained were scattered survivors, pinned down behind makeshift barricades. It was only a matter of time before they were eliminated. Yet Adrian didn't seem concerned. He stopped atop a ridge of collapsed metal, scanning the ruined field. A Dominion advance squad, 6 Karvoks and 2 Ivari, stalked toward the last pocket of human resistance, their rifles raised. Adrian exhaled slowly, then moved. The first shot rang out before the Dominion soldiers even registered his movement. A single, precise burst from Adrian's rifle punched through the Karvok officer's forehead, sending the insectoid warrior crashing to the ground. The remaining soldiers recoiled, their initial confidence wavering. Another shot, another kill. A Ivari fell, its segmented body convulsing before going still. The Dominion forces scrambled, their armor clanking as they sought cover. Plasma bolts erupted from their weapons, but Adrian was already gone. He moved with an unnatural grace, anticipating each shot before it was fired. His silhouette blurred through the smoke, weaving between wreckage and fallen bodies, a phantom in the chaos. A Karvok warrior roared in frustration, switching to thermal vision. His eyes flickered as he tracked the human's heat signature. Their movement. He pivoted, claws tightening around his rifle. Too slow. Adrian was already on him, dropping from above with a combat knife in hand. The blade slipped between the Karvok's plated ribs, severing vital tendons. The alien gasped, stumbling before collapsing onto the scorched ground. The remaining Dominion soldiers hesitated. This wasn't how humans fought. Humans relied on numbers, on strategy, on technology. They didn't fight like this, like predators. Commander Zelvar watched from his command outpost, intrigued. He activated his communicator. Reinforced the front line. Double the unit deployment. A Torkin brute twice Adrian's size stormed forward. His thick, armored hide was resistant to small arms fire, his brute strength unmatched by any human. He swung a massive energy blade, intent on cleaving Adrian in half. Adrian didn't retreat. He waited, watching the alien's movement, reading the subtle shifts in muscle tension. At the last second he sidestepped, the blade missing him by mere inches. Before the Torkan could recover, Adrian slammed the butt of his rifle into its exposed throat. The alien choked, staggering backward. Another well-placed shot to the knee sent it crashing down. Adrian stepped onto its massive chest, aimed his rifle at the exposed part of its skull, and pulled the trigger. Silence. The battlefield, once alive with the clamor of combat, fell eerily still. The remaining Dominion soldiers stared at Adrian, their disbelief palpable. He stood amidst the fallen, untouched, his breathing steady. The human forces, emboldened by the display, surged forward. Gunfire erupted as the battle reignited, but the tide had shifted. The Dominion for the first time felt something foreign creeping into their ranks, fear. Zelvar leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. This war was far from over. But one thing was certain. This human was different. The bodies had barely cooled before the next wave came. The Dominion never hesitated. There were always more soldiers, more war machines, more bodies to throw into the meat grinder. Their strength lay in overwhelming force, in superior technology and precise coordination. They didn't expect humans to survive, let alone fight back. And they certainly didn't expect Adrian Wolf. He stood atop the ruins, rifle still hot in his hands, surveying the battlefield below. The human forces, once scattered and desperate, had taken heart. The shock of his rampage had given them time to reposition, to breathe. But the Dominion adapted fast. New formations were already taking shape in the haze of smoke and dust. The second wave moved with brutal efficiency. A battalion of Karvok infantry, their chitinous armor glistening under the dim light, advanced in synchronized motion. Behind them, the towering figures of Torken enforcers stomped forward, their heavy plasma cannons humming with stored energy. And further still, Adrian spotted something new, a Dominion field commander. Unlike the rank and file, this officer wore an ornate set of armor, sleek and obsidian, inlaid with glowing golden veins of energy. A Yvari, tall and skeletal, its elongated skull partially hidden beneath a ceremonial battle helm. It moved with deliberate slowness, assessing the battlefield through mechanical lenses. This wasn't just an attack. It was an execution. A voice crackled through Adrian's earpiece. "Wolf, what the hell are you doing up there? We need to fall back." It was Lieutenant Briggs, leading what was left of their company. They were dug in 100 yards behind Adrian's position, desperately trying to repair a damaged hover tank. If they could get it operational, they might just have enough firepower to punch through enemy lines. But they wouldn't have time. Adrian switched his comm channel. "Negative. You fall back. I'll slow them down." "You alone? Against that?" Adrian glanced back at the advancing force, at the shifting formations of disciplined killers. He rolled his shoulders. "Yeah." Briggs cursed but didn't argue. The comm went silent. The Karvok infantry moved first. They spread out, their biomechanical rifles spitting rapid pulses of plasma. Adrian dove behind a wrecked vehicle as the ground around him sizzled and cracked. He moved before the next volley came, sprinting low and fast. A plasma bolt grazed his side, burning fabric but missing skin. He counted his steps, calculated angles. 2 Karvoks had broken ahead of the pack, eager for a quick kill. Adrian let them think they had him pinned. He waited until they were nearly on him, then burst from cover, rifle up. The first shot took the lead Karvok in the throat, the second carved through its comrade's skull. Both dropped in a heap, their rifles still humming. The others hesitated. Good. He sprinted forward, closing the distance before they could react. A Karvok swiveled its weapon toward him, but Adrian was already moving. He slammed into the alien, knocking it off balance, then drove his knife into the soft joint beneath its arm. The alien screeched, legs twitching. The Torkens finally engaged. The ground trembled as they unleashed their heavy cannons. Plasma rounds the size of Adrian's fist blasted apart the battlefield, sending molten debris into the air. He zigzagged through the wreckage, feeling the heat of every near miss. One wrong step, one miscalculation, and he'd be a smoldering corpse. He needed to break their formation. Fast. Adrian yanked a grenade from his belt and hurled it at the lead Torken. The brute barely had time to register the threat before the explosive detonated, ripping through its armor. It stumbled, roaring in pain. Before it could recover, Adrian fired a burst into its exposed throat. The beast dropped, its weapon falling silent. The battlefield shifted. Dominion soldiers, once confident, faltered. Their entire strategy relied on overwhelming force, on breaking human morale. But Adrian wasn't breaking. He was moving faster than they could track, hitting harder than they could counter. And they were afraid. From the rear of the formation, the Yvari commander finally stirred. It had remained motionless until now, watching with analytical precision. Adrian saw it raise one long, skeletal arm. A pulse of energy radiated outward and the battlefield changed. The Dominion forces, once scattered, realigned in perfect synchronization. The hesitation was gone. The fear erased. They moved as a singular unit, as if part of the same mind. Adrian exhaled. This was the real fight. The Karvoks advanced, their shots now landing dangerously close. The Torkens repositioned, cutting off escape routes. The Yvari commander strode forward with eerie grace, its golden eyes locked onto Adrian with something akin to curiosity. Adrian adjusted his grip on his rifle. His muscles burned, his breathing was tight, but his focus remained absolute. He wasn't thinking anymore. He was reacting, calculating probabilities in real time. Every twitch of an enemy's muscle, Every shift in stance, it all told him where the next attack would come from. A Karvok lunged at him, blade drawn. Adrian ducked beneath the strike, driving his knee into the alien's abdomen before twisting its own weapon against it. A quick, efficient kill. But there was no time to slow down. Another enemy was already closing in. He spun, narrowly dodging a plasma blast. His mind processed everything at once. The temperature of the air, the flicker of movement on his peripherals, the sound of shifting debris. His body moved before his thoughts caught up. It wasn't training. It was something deeper. Something primal. The Ivari commander observed this, and for the first time it spoke. Its voice was layered, reverberating with synthetic resonance. You are not like the others. Adrian didn't answer. Talking wouldn't change the outcome. The Ivari extended one long hand. A ripple of kinetic energy surged forward, faster than Adrian had expected. It hit him square in the chest, sending him skidding backward. His ribs screamed in protest, but he forced himself upright. The commander wasn't attacking wildly, it was testing him. Fine. Let it test. He steadied himself, wiped blood from the corner of his mouth, and charged. The Ivari moved to counter, but Adrian was already inside its defenses. A single brutal strike to the throat sent it staggering. Before it could recover, Adrian wrenched its arm back and drove a combat knife into the seam between its shoulder plates. The commander spasmed, golden fluid leaking from the wound. Its glowing eyes flickered, processing the impossible. Adrian leaned in, voice steady. Your armor won't save you. With a final violent twist of his knife, he ended it. The remaining Dominion soldiers faltered. Their commander was dead. Their formations collapsed. For the first time in the war, they weren't the ones dictating the battle. The humans were. Adrian turned toward the distant human stronghold. The hover tank was operational. Briggs had done his job. The line would hold. The Dominion had thrown everything at him. And he was still standing. For the first time they would remember what it meant to fear. The Dominion had retreated, but Adrian knew better than to assume the fight was over. He stood amid the wreckage, scanning the battlefield with a calculated gaze. The air was thick with the stench of burnt metal and scorched flesh, but he barely registered it. His body ached, his muscles screamed in protest, yet his mind remained sharp, honed by years of war. Behind him, the remaining human soldiers regrouped, their voices tense but hopeful. They had survived, something no one had expected. Briggs jogged over, helmet tucked under his arm, eyes flicking over Adrian with something between awe and suspicion. Tell me you're at least bruised, Briggs said, shaking his head. Adrian rolled his shoulder. There was soreness, exhaustion creeping in at the edges, but nothing debilitating. Not enough to slow me down. Briggs exhaled sharply. Yeah, of course not. He hesitated, then lowered his voice. Command wants a debrief. They don't understand how any of us, are still standing. They saw the combat feeds, Adrian. Everyone did. Adrian knew what that meant. Officers, scientists, and analysts would soon pick apart every second of the battle, trying to make sense of what had happened. Trying to explain why he had survived when no one else should have. Before he could answer, a deep tremor ran through the ground. The soldiers froze, eyes darting toward the horizon. A low, vibrating hum pulsed through the air, rattling loose debris. Adrian turned toward the sound, already gripping his rifle. It wasn't another battalion. It was something worse. A Dominion war construct emerged from the smoke, its towering form silhouetted against the burning sky. Massive, insectal legs crushed the battlefield beneath them, segmented armor shifting with each step. Its central body gleamed with dark, organic plating, pulsing with an eerie, golden glow. Twin-mounted plasma cannons jutted from its sides, and in the center, nestled within the armored shell, was something Adrian hadn't seen before, a Dominion war mind. Unlike the frontline soldiers, war minds were not biological. They were something beyond, pure intelligence encased in synthetic form, each one controlling thousands of units in battle. This wasn't just an assault. It was an execution. Briggs swore. They sent a goddamn war mind. The soldiers behind them tensed, murmuring in fear. War minds didn't just fight. They adapted. What? They dissected strategies in real time, countered them before an enemy even realized what they were doing wrong. Adrian clenched his jaw. This wasn't a simple battle anymore. The Dominion wasn't just responding to resistance. They were trying to erase him. The Warmind's voice echoed through the battlefield, synthetic yet laced with something disturbingly organic. Human designation, Adrian Wolf. Your survival is an anomaly. An unacceptable deviation. Adrian smirked, tilting his head. Yeah. Get used to it. The Warmind did not hesitate. Energy crackled along its armored body, and in the span of a breath, the battlefield became a storm of plasma and fire. The first blast struck just ahead of Adrian, vaporizing twisted metal and rock. He threw himself into a roll as another beam carved through the space where he had been standing. The sheer heat of it seared the air, left his skin tingling. The other soldiers scrambled for cover, but the Warmind wasn't aiming for them. It was tracking Adrian, calculating his movements. Adrian darted between wreckage, keeping his strides unpredictable. He could almost feel the Warmind analyzing him, adjusting its targeting systems, trying to find the flaw in his pattern. He didn't give it one. Briggs's voice crackled in his earpiece. "We're not equipped for this. We need to. Just keep your men alive," Adrian cut in. "I'll handle this." "Handle it? It's a goddamn Warmind." Adrian wasn't listening. He was already moving. The Warmind's towering legs shifted, repositioning with unnatural speed. It was fast. Faster than something that size had any right to be. But Adrian had studied Dominion constructs before. He had seen how they moved, how they prioritized targets. He had watched them destroy entire squads, entire cities. But they had never fought him. He sprinted forward, toward the thing, weaving through debris as another barrage of energy bolts rained down around him. The Warmind adjusted, calculating his trajectory, compensating for his speed. That was the mistake. At the last second, Adrian pivoted, changing direction faster than any predictive system could account for. The Warmind's cannons fired again, but it was already too late. He was beneath it. The underside of the construct was heavily armored, but nothing was impenetrable. Adrian spotted the exposed joints where the massive legs connected to the core. He pulled a cluster charge from his belt, activated the primer, and slammed it against the weakest point. Then he ran. The explosion tore through the Warmind's limb, sending shockwaves through the ground. The massive construct staggered, one of its legs collapsing beneath it. Sparks and golden energy bled from the wound. But it wasn't dead. The Warmind shifted, its massive frame compensating for the damage. Its voice, once emotionless, now carried a thread of something else. Human unpredictability, unacceptable. Solution, total field annihilation. Adrian felt it before he saw it. A rising hum, a deep, reverberating pulse that sent every hair on his body standing on end. The Warmind was preparing something big. His earpiece flared with static. "Wolf, we've got incoming. Command sending air support, but you need to buy time." Time. Right. He had one shot. The Warmind was shifting power, diverting everything into a final, catastrophic attack. That meant its external defenses were momentarily weaker. Adrian saw it, the pulse generators along its core glowing brighter, overloading. If he could hit them before they fully charged. No time to hesitate. Adrian slung his rifle onto his back, yanking the last explosive charge from his belt. The Warmind's energy surged, the ground vibrating beneath its sheer power. Soldiers were shouting, somewhere behind him, but their voices were distant. There was only this moment. He ran. The Warmind's glow reached its peak, a blinding crescendo of power. Adrian leapt. At the apex of his jump, he twisted, hurling the explosive toward the exposed energy coils. Then, impact. A white-hot detonation erupted, the force of it slamming into Adrian midair, sending him tumbling through smoke and fire. His world spun, pressure crashing against his body. Then silence. When he opened his eyes, he was on his back, staring at the smoke-choked sky. Then the sound of metal groaning, collapsing. Adrian turned his head, coughing against the dust. The Warmind was falling, its entire core split open, golden energy flickering like dying embers. The massive construct crashed to the ground, its final, distorted words crackling through the air before its systems went silent. Briggs was the first to reach him. "Jesus Christ, Wolf." He looked at the wreckage, then back at Adrian. "You're still breathing?" Adrian coughed, forcing himself to sit up. His body ached, his limbs felt heavy, but he was still here. "Yeah," he muttered. "Looks like it." Briggs just laughed, shaking his head. "Command's gonna lose their minds." Adrian wiped blood from his brow and stood. The battle was over. But the war wasn't. The battlefield was still smoldering when the sky split open. A massive Dominion dreadnought, sleek and obsidian, descended through the storm-choked clouds, its gravity wells distorting the air around it. It cast a shadow over the ruins, over the bodies, over the broken Warmind that lay motionless in the dirt. It was not just another attack. It was something more. Adrian stood among the wreckage, rifle gripped loosely in his hands. His body ached with the toll of battle, but his mind was sharp, his breathing steady. He had known this moment would come. He had pushed too hard, survived too much. The Dominion did not tolerate defiance, especially not from a lone human who refused to die. A deep tremor rolled through the earth as the dreadnought deployed its payload. A single figure descended from its belly, wreathed in shimmering energy, untouched by the dust and ruin. The Dominion had sent an arbiter. Arbiters were legends among soldiers, spoken of in hushed tones. They were not commanders. They were not warriors. They were executioners. This one was unlike anything Adrian had faced before. Tall and draped in flowing dark armor, the arbiter moved with the precision of something beyond mortal limitations. It did not wear a helmet. Instead, its elongated, bone-white skull gleamed under the light of the burning wreckage, its golden eyes locked onto Adrian with an eerie, almost human intelligence. When it spoke, its voice was quiet, controlled. You were never meant to exist. The Dominion had sent many things to kill him. Machines, soldiers, war mines. But this was different. This was personal. Adrian exhaled slowly. He adjusted his grip, the weight of his rifle suddenly inconsequential. Around him, the surviving human forces fell back instinctively, recognizing that this was no longer their fight. The arbiter raised one clawed hand, and the battlefield came alive with energy. Adrian moved. A blast of kinetic force shattered the ground where he had stood moments before. He ducked, rolled, and came up firing. His rifle barked, each shot precise, each burst aimed at vital points. But the arbiter was impossibly fast. It twisted, body flowing like liquid, avoiding the shots with an unnatural grace. Then it struck. Adrian barely had time to react before the arbiter closed the distance, its palm colliding with his chest like a battering ram. The force sent him hurtling backward, crashing through a broken transport. He coughed, blood filling his mouth, but forced himself upright. His ribs screamed in protest, but pain was irrelevant. The arbiter was already there. A blade of pure energy extended from its wrist, humming with the lethal charge of a contained singularity. It slashed toward him in a blur, and Adrian twisted at the last second, the blade slicing through the metal behind him. He retaliated with a brutal strike to the arbiter's side, but it caught his wrist mid-motion, fingers clamping down like a vice. Its golden eyes narrowed. You do not belong. Adrian snarled and wrenched free, driving his boot into the arbiter's knee. It barely stumbled. The Dominion had made something far worse than the war mind. This thing didn't just predict movements. It was reacting in real time, learning, adapting. The arbiter came again, blade singing through the air. Adrian ducked, twisting beneath the strike, and drove a combat knife into the exposed joint between its armor plates. The blade sank deep, but the arbiter did not falter. It turned its head, studying the knife, then wrenched it free as though it were nothing. Adrian barely had time to move before the arbiter struck him again, faster, harder. The world blurred as he hit the ground. His ears rang, his vision swam, but he forced himself to stand. He had been here before. Beaten, broken, left to die. But he wasn't dead yet. The arbiter tilted its head. What are you? Adrian spat blood onto the ground. Then he smiled. Just a guy who doesn't know when to quit. For the first time, something flickered in the arbiter's gaze. Not anger. Not fear. Interest. Then it raised both hands. The air cracked apart as an energy field erupted around the battlefield, shimmering like a prison of liquid gold. Adrian felt the shift immediately, his limbs heavier, his movements slower. It was altering gravity, increasing the pressure with every second. The Dominion hadn't just sent an executioner. They had sent a god. The arbiter stepped forward. You fight without augmentation. No armor. No enhancements. Its voice was almost curious. And yet you stand. Adrian's muscles burned under the pressure, but he clenched his fists, forcing himself to remain upright. The arbiter's eyes gleamed. Fascinating. Then it moved faster than anything Adrian had ever seen. The next strike nearly shattered him. He barely dodged, feeling the heat of the energy blade skim past his ribs. He retaliated, a brutal punch to the arbiter's throat. It landed, but the arbiter barely flinched. It grabbed Adrian's arm and wrenched it downward, slamming him to his knees. The golden field pulsed again. The weight of it crushed against his chest, pressing him into the dirt. The arbiter leaned down, lowering its voice. You should not exist. Adrian gritted his teeth. His body screamed, but his mind refused to break. The arbiter raised its blade for the final strike. Adrian exhaled. Then he moved. At the last possible second, he twisted, shifting his weight against the pull of gravity, using it against itself. The Arbiter's blade slashed down, only to miss by an inch as Adrian pivoted. In that instant, Adrian drove his last explosive charge against the Arbiter's exposed side and triggered it. The detonation was immediate. The Arbiter staggered, golden energy spilling from the wound. The gravity field flickered, its hold weakening. Adrian didn't hesitate. He surged forward, grabbing the Arbiter by the throat and drove it backward. The Arbiter's composure cracked. It struggled, golden eyes flickering with something Adrian had never seen before. Doubt. He clenched his fists. Guess I do exist after all. Then, with every ounce of strength left in his body, he snapped the Arbiter's neck. The Dominion's executioner crumpled. The battlefield was silent. Adrian swayed but forced himself to stand. The remaining Dominion forces, leaderless and stunned, hesitated. Then, for the first time, they did something Adrian had never seen before. They retreated. Briggs and the other soldiers emerged from cover, their expressions a mixture of shock and awe. Briggs approached, looking at the fallen Arbiter, then at Adrian. I'm starting to think you're not human. Adrian let out a slow breath. I'm just stubborn. Above them, the Dominion dreadnought hesitated, then turned and ascended back into the clouds. The battle was over. But Adrian knew the war was far from finished. He had survived. Again. And now the Dominion would fear him.